everyone. Today we're on the back porch, well, our virtual back porch, and wanted to let you know once again that we started this series because often the best place to pick TA's brain, to get his opinion on business, well, and life, is often to catch him on the back porch. So we wanted to bring that experience to y'all since we can't be in person just yet. We're so excited. We know the return to live is coming very soon. We are ramping up. We're ready to get back to live. So today we do have a special guest, Melanie Reed, our Vice President of Business Operations. Good morning.
Good morning, Rachel. It's so exciting to be here in person and not just watching y'all on my computer screen.
Heck yeah. And also, we wanted to let you know we have a brand new set here at the Alford Media studio. We have a curved LED screen. We're showing it to you now. We're so excited.
It's a brand new back porch.
Yeah.
I think we're now off the porch.
Yeah, yeah. We're flying. All right, so as we talk about our return to live, one of the things, our biggest topic is increasing the attendee experience and their engagement, how we can keep their attention. But one of the things is we have so many words: return to live, virtual, online, hybrid. So TA, tell us what you think about all those terms.
Well, as a lot of people know, virtual is one of the terms that kind of drives me crazy because we're not virtually doing an event, we're actually live here. So I kind of prefer myself online, but virtual is the word that everybody uses. And then, of course, we have hybrid, which means we have an audience out there live in the room with us, and we're broadcasting virtually, as well. And I think that is going to be quite a ways into the future. We'll still be doing that. We've all done Zoom. I think everybody has done multiple Zoom meetings this past year, and to me, they're great. If it's more like a meeting you'd have in your conference room, you want to get everybody's input. It's really an unrehearsed meeting. It's a wonderful platform. But I've been on 3-hour ones that were just, a bit much. And I always have people ask me, why would I use a different platform? Why don't we just, use Zoom? And I always say, watch a TV show or a news show that's a little more polished. And that's really the reason to me, one of the main reasons to go out to a platform and really do more of a professional show with less distractions and not all the little people's faces up in the corner. All of it has a place. But I think doing a TV production type thing with a set like we have here can be really engaging and a great way to go. I also, one of my pet peeves this past year, we've learned so much in how to do better jobs and how to do virtual meetings better. But, if you're going to do a real meeting and you're going to have keynote speakers and everything, it's rehearsed. It's a Zoom meeting. It can be off the cuff. But if you're going to be presenting to a lot of people, rehearse ahead of time. Get ready, get prepared. And that's been kind of a struggle. So I think forward, we need to be doing more of that. And then as we go into this next year, we're going to have live events that are just live, and we're going to have virtual events and hybrid events. And we've learned so much. We were doing virtual events basically before COVID happened, but it was occasionally. And usually what it was is we were doing what we're now calling hybrid events, where we were sending out a stream from show site. But it wasn't that often. I think it's going to be something that is all part of our lives for a long time to come. And the good news is this past year we have just learned, I think the industry has learned a lot on how to do a great job of that, whether it's going to come from a studio or it's going to come from a ballroom, hopefully very soon, taking those things and keeping people more engaged and doing a better job. So that's where the future is headed. And Rachel, tell us a little bit about ways we can keep those people engaged.
Yeah, so I think the virtual is here to stay.
For sure.
For sure. Even when we get back to face-to-face meetings, our virtual components are going to be a part of it going forward. There's just no going back. Now, even a real-world example, I recently saw an article where State Farm, the insurance company, they were doing virtual insurance adjustments for like the hail damage recently. We had some storms roll through. And at first they were doing it because they had to for social distancing. They couldn't bring people together, but now their customers liked it and experienced it, and of course it lowers cost, and you get to keep your car, you're not without your vehicle, so they're going to do it going forward. So
think that's a great example because I think that'll apply to events. Like Tom was saying before, there were events that were using that virtual component.
Yeah.
But 2020 and into 2021 has forced us to get really great at a necessity
Right.
on virtual or online events. So when those live events come back, I think it's going to be even that much better. And they're going to be things much like the State Farm. They're going to be events or attendees or certain things that's going to work better to add the virtual component or to continue to do virtual in addition to the live. So I'm really excited about the future.
Absolutely. All right, so our first topic today is polling. It's one of my favorite. So you can see if you've lost your audience, how to get them back. It's been a mainstay in events, but it's especially easy to do when it's virtual. And then also you can get feedback, like what is your audience thinking about? Do they like the content that you're presenting? Are they understanding the concepts? So we're going to get straight to it. We're going to do our first live poll here, and we would like you to answer it. It should be just a little bit below us on your screen here. And our first question that we have for you today is, what role do you think virtual will have in the future of live events? So TA, what do you think?
Well, I think, like I said, virtual will be a part of many of the shows. I don't think it will be all. Some shows are by nature private, or the attendees can all attend. But I think virtual will be a much larger part moving forward, allowing the audience to be larger and people who can't travel to be a part. So, as Melanie said, it's here to stay in some form, is what I think.
What is your favorite thing about polling?
So my favorite thing about polling is just being able to get information from the attendees, like what, there's so many, whether it's what they're thinking about or what they're caring about, but just really to get that data from the attendees. And when you're doing it virtual, they're more likely to engage on that versus I've been to a lot of live events where they have that, and it's about half and half that people get their phones out and do it. But when you're doing it on the computer, it's a lot more easy. It's a lot easier to participate in that poll and a little more intuitive.
Yeah, and being on both sides, for me, like sometimes I get to host the event, so I'm the person seeing all the results because I want to, find out, is my audience, still with me? And then also when I'm attending events, it's fun to, let the presenter know, hey, I'm here. Here's my answer. So we have some responses we'd like to share with you. Right now, it looks like the majority of people say that the majority of events will keep a virtual element. I don't think we're too surprised about those answers.
No.
Yeah.
It's split 50-50, and I think very few think it's a fad.
Yeah, zero.
Yeah,
Right.
We were doing some of it before COVID. We forget that.
And I'm glad to see that the fad, we don't have any because our whole topic today is about virtual experience. So good. Maybe people will want to continue to listen in. So.
Right. If that was the majority answer, we would just, and now we would tell you bye. There was no reason to be virtual. All right. So how about our second question? What do you like most about virtual events? So I'll ask you first, Mel. What's your favorite thing about virtual events?
I have to say mine is the first one, the convenience. Yeah. It's just, I never feel like there's enough time in the day or enough, like I can't be everywhere I need to be. And I have to say, I like the experience of being in person, but I love the convenience that I don't have to go anywhere to get there and I can get the information.
And Tom?
Well, generally, I hate them. I same thing. When it's educational, it is nice to sit and learn. But I love being around people, and I like the interaction, and I like to be able to look somebody in the eye and see if I think they're really thinking something. But when it comes to learning about something new, and you can sit at home and get on a meeting or watch something and learn a new thing, I'm for that. But I'm a face-to-face guy for 40 years, and that really hadn't changed. So
Do you get a choice?
Yeah.
my choice would be the expanded reach.
Yeah, all right. There you go.
All right, excellent. It does look like the majority of people say the convenience is what they like most, and then followed by the expanded reach. And I do think we were talking a little bit about that earlier, how perhaps your audience can't get to the live in-person event, and
Right.
you can get more people to attend.
Absolutely. And sometimes you have an event where a certain level of folks got to come perhaps, or they won the right to be at an event, but they want other people to see it and know about it and be involved so that maybe they can be the ones to go next year and have that excitement, and they can expand that out, with virtual. But I want to be the guy that gets to go.
Right, definitely. All right, and one more poll for everyone. What makes a virtual experience better? Interaction with other attendees, interaction with the speaker or the event planner, the production of the event, the ease of the use of the platform, or the flexibility to join anywhere. What do you think, Tom?
I think really for me, it's probably the flexibility is my favorite thing.
What makes your virtual experience better?
I think really for me, probably, I'm going to say actually the production of the event slash the use of the platform. And I'll say the production of the event just because it is so easy to tune out if it's not interesting, engaging, and done well. If I don't feel like the people putting on the event took the time to do a good job, it's hard for me to give my time to pay attention to it just because there are so many more distractions when you're at home. So I think that is extremely important personally, is having a well done event so that, again, you feel like they put the time in and the effort, and it's just more engaging.
Definitely. And it looks like today our winner is flexibility to join anywhere. So I think that's the theme. Convenience was kind of the top on the first question, and then flexibility. So I think that is definitely the reason that virtual or hybrid components work so well, is you can get to them just about anywhere with an internet connection.
So let's talk a little bit more about the polling. Thank y'all for joining us in the poll and giving us that feedback. That was very helpful. And there's so many ways you can use polling. And even today, as we were talking before we came on, there were some ways I didn't even think of. I'm like, oh, that would be a good use for polling. So first, how to do a poll well and what we use for polling. As you can see on Alford Virtual Event Space, which we designed from the ground up, we do use the plug-in Slido for our polling. It's just become a industry standard. They didn't pay us to say that. It just really did. We were trying to do something on our own, and that's what our clients were used to and our vendors were used to. And it's really been a very easy way to integrate that in there. But there are other polling options as well. But when can you use polling? So when there's a long presentation, again, it's about keeping people's attention. People have a short attention span. So if you find yourself giving a long presentation, it gives them a break to be able to share their thoughts, right? Just to rest their brain for a minute and have a say so. Because when they're listening, they're thinking and hopefully reflecting on what is being said, right? And they want to share. People naturally want to communicate, want to give back. So it's a way to break that up and let them engage. So engagement is one way to use it, just to keep them engaged. Also, you can use it for an icebreaker. Just, even though people are all in their own individual spaces, you do want to set the tone and the stage where people feel free to ask questions or to chat with each other or to really take advantage and immerse themselves in that event. And they're more likely going to do that if they feel like, if they're having fun and they feel like people are listening, or they care who they are or whatever. Just like icebreakers in real events are important, I think it does set the stage for an online event as well. Something Tom had mentioned earlier is just to see, too, do they care what you're talking about? He was in a meeting, and it was a long technical meeting, and it was a way, since not everybody could speak at one time, but do we need to continue talking about this? Are we done? Do we need to move on? And so I think that's a great way just to see, get that feedback if you're being topical, if they're ready to move on, how that's going. And of course, it depends on what kind of event that is, but that can be useful. Because I think for me, one of the biggest drawbacks on doing a virtual event versus an in-person is I'm constantly looking at people and seeing if they're nodding, are they looking at me, or are they yawning? I'm seeing, do they care what I'm talking about? And when we're doing it like this, I can kind of see one person right now, and I can see y'all. So I'm just imagining everybody is engaged in what we're saying. But anyway, so back to polling, you can use that. It's like, okay, do we need to move on, or do we still need to talk about this, or just to get feedback in that way? And then also just why we did polling before when it was in live events to get data, right? You have a collective group of people with a like interest or education, or there's some reason these people are gathered together. And there's going to be information that they have that's going to be useful for whoever it is, the company, whether it's on your product or whether it's on the speaker or the topic or whatever. You have all these people and all this information. It's such an easy way to get information to help make things better for the future.
Definitely. So I think we'll go a little off script, and we've got a question already for us. Are clients eager for a polished look, or do they just want like a make do with Zoom or Teams? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I think the answer is both. For myself, if it's a company meeting, with your own folks, and it's just that. I mean, it's an in-house meeting. Zoom quite often is a good way to go, and you have everybody there. We're going to have one tomorrow, I believe. But if you want a polished presentation, if you have customers listening to you, or if you're trying to get out to hundreds of people and you want to do a nice, polished presentation, I think you absolutely want to be on another platform, do a more professional presentation. And again, just like we did in live events, you do a breakout room to be one-on-one, and then you have the polished presentation, perhaps in that main tent. So I don't really think there's a difference there. And then we've done some things where there are fundraisers and what have you again, and you want a lot of people out there to be able to log on to a site and be a part. And again, a different platform at that point, I think, is a much better way to go. So like everything else in our business, what are you trying to do?
So sorry.
And if you're just having a conversation with your own people, is just like calling them into the conference room, as I said. Zoom's a great way to go, even if it's a large group. But if you want a polished presentation out there, highly professional, and let's go to a platform. Let's do a polished presentation.
I think it's the same as for live events.
Yes, same as live events.
Are you going to meet in your, like you said, your boardroom or a conference room or out on a porch, or are you going to do an event? And also, I think, again, it's even when you watch the news, do you see, you're looking to see their distractions in the background, like one of the weather guys we watch, he always has pets there. And it's like, oh, what's his dog going to do? And I may not see what the weather's going to be today because I'm looking at what the dog's going to do. It's the same kind of thing here. It's like, do you want people really focused on what you're saying and really immersed and engaged in that? Or is it more of a conversational, relaxed environment?
Right.
So just depends.
So Q&As, they're not new to events at all. Oftentimes we have, pass the mic around, or there's a mic where you can go up to in an aisle. But we're going to talk about how we can implement those here in our virtual event. So here's a plug. Go ahead and ask us your questions now on our Q&A feature, because we are going to have a Q&A session at the end.
So really, Q&A, like you said, has always been around. I mean, it's just, again, you want to get feedback, and what are people thinking, what's important to them. And on the platform, I think this has been something that's been really interesting and has continued to evolve, and I don't know that everybody's quite prepared for in some ways. Because when you're doing Q&A in person, you hear their inflection, you see them, and you're engaging with them, and you're getting nonverbal cues. A lot of communication, most of communication is not verbal. It's as nonverbal or inflection, not just what they're saying. So, when we went to this online event, it's easy to submit questions, but are they meaningful? What are they really trying to say? Where are they coming from? And it's fine to do the submit the question, but then we have seen people wanting to hear people. They're wanting to see people. They want a video. They want them to speak to them, not just type the questions in. So that's something we're starting to see more requests for, and we have done. And we're in the process of making ways to do that easier, where you could have, much like walking up to a mic in a meeting, you're virtually in your virtual video queue, and then you can choose people to speak. So I think that's very exciting. And I think it also speaks, though, how people love in-person live. They want to see faces, they want to talk, they don't want it just to be all typed. So again, you can submit just a Q&A like we're doing today, and please do submit questions because we want to know what y'all want to talk about, right? And what's on your mind. But then also you can have ways where you can do it in person with a mic. And on either of those, you can do it moderated or pre-screened. So it just depends on how brave you are or how much time you have. You can go completely open and take first come, first serve, or there are ways that we can, moderate those or pre-screen them to be sure we're getting really meaningful questions that are going to help propel the presentation forward and the content forward and what we're trying to deliver. So there's a lot of options, and we're only getting better at it.
Absolutely. All right, so our next topic is the chat feature, which is perhaps my favorite. It just lets you interact with the other attendees, and then you feel like you're a sense of purpose, like your community. We highly recommend chat as a place to spur debate also. And it keeps your attendees engaged longer because they have something to do if they do get bored with the presentation. So that is a great feature to have. Also, I think if you don't have chat, people are always talking behind the scenes anyway. So I know often in meetings, I'll get text or instant messages from people who I know are in the same meeting with me. Like it's almost like the meeting behind the meeting. So if you have that chat, then it's easy to talk about the event right then and there with everyone instead of having like multiple windows open on your screen so you can stay there.
And one of the nice things about chat is when I'm in a meeting and somebody next to me is chatting, talking, it's really rude. I find it extremely distracting, and I want to turn around and go, hey, put a cork in it. But when it's video, when it's chat on a computer, you can do that, and you're not distracting from everybody else. And yet, like Rachel said, they can be engaged. Plus, you can look and see, are they more interested in, somebody's pet, or are they actually chatting about what we're all talking about? And it keeps people engaged. So if you're going to chat, it's one of the few things that I think is actually better in this virtual environment than it is when you're in a ballroom and people are, instead of listening, are talking to each other. So there is an advantage there. And I do think to keep engagement, it's something I would normally always have on, have available.
Definitely.
And just, in person, one of the favorite things is getting to see people and talk to people. And that's what's stripped away when you're online. So that's the best way to do that. I have to say, I love the chat when I'm usually watching the back porches because I like to say hi to people and to see who's on there, and just really, again, that sense of community and connection. And I think we've seen that people really need that this last year more than ever. So I do think it is interesting because we talked about this again just a little earlier. It's like in a normal meeting when you're live, that's rude. I'm the one too going, zip it. Yeah. But now when I'm online, I'm like, come on, people, chat. Like, let's get together, let's talk and say hi and have that sense of community. And again, it gives them a way to, keep the attention on the screen and not on all the other things going on behind them.
Agreed. All right, so next, we're going to talk about video engagement. Often in a presentation, when it's just people talking, you need something to break up the flow, so your brain can get just more a visual clue that there's a break in the content. So we do get requests about how we can incorporate a face-to-face element within a virtual event. So TA, how do we do that?
Well, you're probably asking the wrong person for some of that, but we have sometimes they actually break out. That is a good time for a Zoom. Give them another plug. But after you have your main tent meeting, perhaps they go and they join that. We can also set up video breakout rooms that are a structured part of the meeting. Again, just like we would do live, it just happens to be virtually done. And in the main tent, we can, as we said, we have ways to bring people from video into the meeting through other devices while we're having our stream. So it's really how do they want to do it, and how big? Is it a mini breakout? Is it just 5 people, or was there 500 people watching and it's 10 breakouts of 50? Or you have to use different technology to do it properly depending on the size of that audience. So. Well, you've probably been more involved with the code writers and things that we
I have.
using for some of this.
Like I said, always looking for ways to make it better, and have some really exciting things coming soon. But we do have ways to do it now. It's just as we always do, we find a way to do something, and it's like, how can we do it better or easier or improve upon it? And that's really where we are now. But it is the thing, like even early on, people struggled with the idea of not seeing people and not having, that the video in-person part of it. So that's the part I think that's really just been developing so quickly. Many things have, but I think that especially. So it gives that you can, like you said, we've done the big session and then, okay, this group gets to go pick the brain of the VIP or the subject matter expert almost as like a reward or, to, you could do that if they're a certain sponsor, then they get to go to this event. Or I also love when they have, maybe there's content presented and then you get a small group together and then it's a work group. So, again, there are ways to do it. And that's one of the things, on Zoom, we do a lot just for our internal meetings, right? We're there and we can talk and we can chat and we work out things, but it has limitations. So there's ways to do with the professional platform where you can have the polished event and then have those smaller VIP sessions or breakouts or what have you. So you just really have to think about, you don't want to overuse it just for the sake of doing it, but when video really adds to the value or the engagement or gets, a better product or what have you, there are ways to do it. You just have to take a moment and think about the best way to apply it.
So our next topic is, how can you integrate social media into your events? And I think we had started out, first, social media was a way to get your message, and now it's more about engagement and the integration of social media. So how do you think we can be better?
Well, I'm not the world's biggest social, media guy, but it is out there, and we all use it. And when I was thinking about this, years and years ago, it seems like now, we were privileged to work the Boy Scouts 100th anniversary, and it was a 2.5-hour walk-in. So the kids were allowed to actually send in via their phone a request for songs and things like that. And we had it up on the giant screens, and it was to keep people fun and engaged. So that was something that was actually done years ago. And then just this past week, we did a auction site and an evening event for Make-A-Wish, which we've sponsored for many years and love dearly. And they use social media as engagement to get people active and engaged before the meeting actually started. And it was, I think, quite successful from everything I saw. And we've done meetings where, it's top secret and there can't be any social media, but we've always done meetings where the whole intent was to get things out on social media. They wanted to see how many Facebook posts and how many Twitter things went out from the room. And so today we can actually, we're routinely bringing it into the actual screen or into the conversation, because it is, whether we like it or not, it is a part of our everyday life. And so we want to make the best use of it we can. So quite often, again, like everything else, it's what is the intent and who do you want to see that? Is it something for everybody, for consumption for everybody, or is it a private? And decide ahead of time.
Exactly. And I think one of the benefits for having the social media feed on part of your platform, because you can have the event, the online event or in live event, and have social media going on, right, in parallel. But when you have it as part of that, then it encourages the behavior. Right. So when you have it integrated into the platform, it's on the platform, and that's not on a lot of them. It really reinforces that. One, yes, the engagement, but also if you're trying to get the information out there, get the spread, get more people knowing, more people excited about something, when the people watching the event or seeing the platform, they want to be on the platform, right? And so it just kind of feeds, and you're going to get more activity instead of having it a separate thing. So I think it's great. If that's your intent, is to create excitement and get the reach, then it's really great to have that as part of the platform to feed itself.
Agreed. All right, so our next topic is scheduling for your virtual event. I think this is very important. It's also be applied to live events, is that your attendees need breaks. And even in an online, they would probably actually need more breaks than in person. And that helps you break up your content. It gives them a chance to get away, maybe go do their day job for a few minutes, gives them a brain break, a bio break, and we just need those breaks away from the content, and that's just something to think about when you're scheduling your event. So Tia, what do you think about breaks?
Well, I know I was on a meeting several weeks ago, and it went on for over 3 hours without a break.
And how long did you stay engaged?
Yeah, and it was brutal. And so everybody started turning, we had our video engaged. Everybody started unengaging their video, and it was, to me, fairly obvious. I did it because I had to leave to go to the bathroom. And it would have been much better if they had simply said, we're going to take a break here at the end of this discussion and come back and have a new talk. None of us go, I'll say none, over the years. We've seen everything in a ballroom, but very seldom does anybody come up with the idea to make everybody sit for 3 hours without getting up and leaving the room. My backside in my old age can't take it. So why would you do it? And especially when you're trying to keep people engaged on a very small screen, which is much more difficult, in my opinion, than in a live ballroom situation or convention center. And we don't do it there. So, let's not do it in where people are worried to leave because they're going to miss something or feel like they'll be in trouble. And yet we make them sit for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, just like we do, again, we've always done for live. At some point, I would say, typically no more than an hour and a half. If your topic, by the way, is longer than that, you probably need to question what you're presenting. Yeah. But set it up, give people a break, and then, you can have music on, or you can be doing social media things, or you can have other things to keep people's attention if they don't want to leave. But put real breaks in the event and give people a chance to walk away and then come back and really be engaged versus praying that it will soon be over.
And there's nothing worse than if you're on one where the videos are there and you see people start to turn their video off. I mean, you're sitting there in the middle of speaking. It's like, oh, lost that one. Oh, lost that one. Or even if you're not having video, we see the numbers. I've gone to events and I've presented and you're watching the little counter and it's like, oh, lost another one, gained one. Yeah. So yeah, you really want to be sure. And two, I was thinking, how much planning goes into a live event on the schedule, right? We see the show flows. It's not like, okay, this presenter comes up there and he is on stage for 2 hours. Like, you just don't do that.
No.
Right? How much thought goes into, okay, how long are they speaking? Do you change the graphics up? Do you now have some music coming in? It's the same thing, right?
It should be.
It should be the same thing. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. But I think people need to look at it from that side. And I think early on, people tried to overcompensate because they're like, we can't take them there in person, so we just need so much information and keep them there so long. Like that 3-hour meeting probably didn't need to be 3 hours, Tom.
Yep.
Truly.
Did not.
They could have focused the content and done the same thing as effectively and probably, less time. I don't say how much. I wasn't part of that meeting or planning it. But you really need to think about just what do you really need to share and how long to keep them. More is not better. And give them a break.
And in that particular meeting, they had a wonderful guest speaker that all of us actually wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. But of course, he was the last thing.
Oh.
So we were captured. And we didn't have a schedule, or I would have left and came back if I knew exactly when that guest speaker was coming on, and I would have just listened to that. And unfortunately, or if they had made a mistake of telling me they were going to record it, I would have just waited. But it was somebody I really did want to hear, and so, but I did send them a note that, come on, guys, you're killing me here. So yeah. I don't want to be that person doing that.
And I think one of the fun ways, is when we're doing live like we are now. But if you were to bring in a recorded presentation, it just changes up the way that you can, that you're viewing it and all the information that can be brought to you in a different way. And I know you have thoughts about pre-recording.
Right. I was going to say, when you have a live virtual event, as we're doing right here, if it is not we're doing a conversation here, and that's what the back porch is all about. But if you're doing something that is a keynote speech, is a technical speech, something with a lot of visuals in the background that you're wanting people to remember, people don't know if it's live or pre-recorded if it's all virtual. Even in ballrooms, we often do play videos for specific topics. But I think it's much more important and much more useful in these virtual events. You've got the opportunity to record it ahead of time, have somebody professionally edit it, make yourself look good, which I need all the help I can get, make the graphics where you want them, and that's done ahead of time. And if you want to take questions after and you want them to think you were live, put on the same shirt. Nobody's going to know. But why risk doing it completely live? Again, if it's a keynote type or a technical talk, go ahead and record that. Make it perfect. We did an event back in the summer where we had to record 100 and something different speakers in a 3-day. It was a political thing. I won't name parties, but the good news is, they did give everybody 2 chances, and so at least it wasn't awful, and it was all pre-recorded, and so they could control the speed of the content and keep it going, and which was much better than giving me, or God helps us, a politician, the mic that you can't get them off stage. So, and it worked very well. Matter of fact, the event was so successful, they're looking at, when we can come back, possibly doing it similar in the future. So if you're doing those kind of presentations, record it. Make it easier on us, make it easier on you.
I
Let
think
us help
that's
you.
one of the things that's truly a benefit.
Right.
We're doing, might as well use it, right? I mean, that's truly one of the benefits. Most of these virtual events or online events are out of necessity, but and we learn to adapt to make it as best we can. But that, heck, that's a great tool. It lessens stress, better quality, better content. You might as well. And also, as far as that, since we're here in our brand new studio, beautiful studio here too, you need to think about where you record that content. I mean, you can, if people can't make it into a studio, you can do it from their home. We have some things to make that look better, and that can work. But if you do need graphics or want to have more interaction and just more visually engaging, have professional camera people and lighting. Again, I could use all the help too. It's great to have the all of that going. There are so many options for doing it in a studio as well to get that team behind you.
Yes. All right. So another plug for submitting your questions, please. We want to hear from you and talk about the topics that are important to you. We've got one to get us started. I'll talk to TA first. When do you think live events will be fully back?
Well, fully back is kind of the question.
Yeah.
We see live events coming back already. This past week, when I heard that New York was totally opening up the city on, I believe it's the 18th of May, I almost did a dance, and I don't do many dances for New York, being a Texan. But as we see these states open, the South has already started to open up much more. We already have done some events in Florida because they are open, and I was glad to see that the stadiums here in Dallas, I think 2 weeks ago, started having real baseball games with people in the audience again, and not spaced. I mean, and there's been so far no bad repercussions from that. So all of that is helping to propel us forward, and we're starting to talk a lot about live events. And actually, out in October, we have several already booked up that are significant sized events that have already confirmed. And actually, we have some every month into the future, but we have a lot there. I think in 2022, we will be fully back. I think the face of the events will be a little different. Like we said before, I think there will be virtual elements that are things that we learn that are good for our customers and good for their audience that we'll continue to do. But I think I'll go past thinking to pray. I believe by 2022, they will be fully back. But this fall, for instance, NAB is doing not just their fall event, but actually is doing a trade show in conjunction with it, as is our Infocom, our industry's event, which is normally not in the fall. They are going ahead and doing a fall event. A lot of the medical conventions, of course, the doctors have all had their COVID shots, as I have. So they're already starting to, they've already done some events, and they seem to be booking pretty quickly those conventions back, and the corporate sponsorships and the corporate shows that go along with them. We're doing an airline industry event this summer already that is back to being live. So I think it's going to start coming on, and I hope, quite frankly, it'll be a snowball, and I'll be struggling and calling I've already been contacting some of my freelance buddies out there, but I hope I'm asking you, who else can you send to us soon, because we're struggling to get the right people. We've had too many people available, and I look forward to when seeing everybody in a ballroom soon and begging them to send me another great tech, because we're running short, because that's definitely not been the case for way too many months.
Amen.
But
From the very beginning, I know you've said, when will corporate be back? Sporting events
And the
music
bar.
events and bars.
The bar.
And those are happening. So the sporting events are opening up. The music events, we have a son who plays music, plays in a band. And last weekend, I can believe we had 2 live events, like with real people, on stage, which we hadn't done in a year. And so the bars are opening up. So yeah, it's that next
I
next
actually
thing.
forgot that, but last year when people were asking me in April, I said, well, as soon as the bar is open and we can go talk about how either good or bad the event was together, they'll be back. And I've talked to a lot of people that think we'll continue the extreme spacing and all of that, and I just don't see it. I don't see people paying for an event if those attendees cannot go gather right after it. We always say at our own events that the most important things happen after when people are talking. And last Tuesday, I went to a restaurant here in Dallas, walked in with my mask, and the whole place was packed. And even the waiters did not have bars on. I was happy to take my mask off. But again, so many people are, if you want a vaccine, I'm gonna give a plug for vaccines here. If you want a vaccine, they're available. I've done mine, my whole family has. And everybody in this industry, unless you have a religious or a medical reason, you can't. It's just crazy, not to. I mean, two things, if you're a historical person, history buff like me, that changed the world more than anything else is clean water and vaccines. We don't die from polio. Our friends aren't crippled anymore. Diphtheria, on and on. It's because of vaccines. We don't even know what smallpox is. Most of you out there watching today are so young you don't even have a spot in your arm from getting that shot when you were young, as I do, and many of us. Get your vaccine. I know it makes some people nervous, but that's what's going to get us all back to work and keep us healthy. And I've had too many friends, by the way, that had COVID, and it was not fun. So avoid that, and let's all get us back to work. So
I know.
Theo's soapbox for the day.
I'll just add to that a bit, because I was on actually an online meeting. It was a school board meeting. They could have used some of these tips as far as scheduling, as it went quite lengthy. And they acknowledged the children at the very, very end. By that time, the 10-year-olds were not engaged anymore. But they did have somebody from the health department on there talking about the vaccines. And it really hit home, because he said, basically, we've got to get the majority. If the majority don't do it, then it really didn't do that much good to have the ones who did, right? And it was for schools. He's like, if we can get a certain amount, schools will be back in the fall. And I'm thinking, schools, okay, I can deal with online school. In-person's great, but I need in-person events.
Right.
So I just replaced every time he said school with meeting. And I'm like, please, But, he was saying if they don't, then we might be back to where we were a year ago in the fall. So anyway, but so far it's looking good, so.
Yeah, excellent. All right, our next question: for national and global events that include a general session, trade shows, interactive, a big show like NEB or CES, how is Alford equipped to upscale to these shows?
Well, I'm not 100% sure on that question, but I mean, Alford is always specialized in extreme customer service, and primarily in what I call the ballroom. Of course, we've done things that were 80,000 people outdoors, but it was still a specialized event. And we do massive amounts of breakouts. They're typically not the tiny breakouts. They're ones that may be a little more involved. But we're a part of a very large, wonderful company. We're part of the Freeman Companies. I think everybody knows that. And so our resources are pretty massive out there, and there are different groups that can do all of that. And I also have many clients that are independent producers, and we protect them and work with them really close. So it's really like everything else in life. It's what does that customer need, and who is that customer? And I think we do a wonderful job of recognizing who our customer is. And one of our things this year within their larger corporations being customer centric, and I've said more than once, that's all I've done for 39 years. But it's really, what does our customer want? And if they don't have the resources, and by the way, if we don't have it anywhere in our larger organization that can do it, we either know people that do that piece, or I know who to ask to find out, and that's always been the case. But we are extremely capable and set up to handle general sessions. That's our stock and trade. We have done some very complicated trade shows for many years. It wasn't just, putting in monitors in a trade show booth and stuff. It's really not what Alford has done. But when it amounts to actually a show that happens to be inside of a trade show booth or a room, we have done that. I know my techs always love when it's a trade show booth, they get to live in a closet for a week. But we do it, and we do it very successfully. And as far as, upscaling, when I was first in this business, if we had to go find additional gear, we had to get it from our competitors, which we still do at times, but it was difficult. Today, our resources in the industry, not just within our company and our parent company, they're immense. We are able to upscale really quickly. If we run out of video projectors or LED, we have resources to get, I won't say unlimited because that's not true, but pre-COVID, we had events that had 3,000 LED modules on it, and we did not have 3,000 matching within our company. But we were able to upscale that, and we might do 1,500 in the center screen that were all matched, and then use maybe a lesser resolution on the outside. And by the way, we're always really honest on what we own and don't own here at Alford, but we were able to handle that and handle it, I will say, extremely well and do a great show. So we're extremely excited about needing to upscale. We've spent a year downscaling. It sucks. In case any of y'all wonder, the challenge of having to be busier and manage things, we are so excited to be getting back to that. I don't think I've said it today yet, but we're seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and for the first time in over 12 months, I don't think it's a train fixing to run me over. So we are preparing. A lot of our time right now is being spent preparing for live events to come back, because I really feel that it'll be a floodgate sometime this fall and then extreme next year. I know I am ready to go back and see people. And like I said, when I was at that bar, you just talk to people and they're like, we're so glad to be back around human beings.
Right.
And so I was having a conversation yesterday at lunch. I think July, a lot of people want to be out with their families because they've all been cooped up for a year. And even executives have families and they want to go out and do something. They want to be engaged. Mm-hmm. But right after they get that done and they have a little time not in their own home, because I think we're all, I live on a farm, thank God, so I have 100 acres to be bored at sometime. But a lot of people have been in an apartment for a year.
Right.
I think once they get past that, meetings, getting together, trade shows, we'll see. I think the NAB CESs are going to be busier than ever. And once our corporations nationwide have to remove their travel bans and travel restrictions. Most people I talk to, that seems to be, a lot of them were September and they're already moving them, including our own company, into July. Mm-hmm. But I think by end of September, most of those travel restrictions will be. But Alford is prepared, ready, willing, and able to take on. We're looking to just take on the world, and we're able to do that, and we're looking forward to the challenge. So.
And if I could add to that, I think part of that also is the people aspect, because I know I've talked to a lot of people concerned, because so many of the people in this business have not been busy in this last year. And there was a fear, that maybe they would go elsewhere or find other things, because this has lasted longer than anybody ever expected. Mm-hmm. And I know people outside of AV is kind of interesting. I feel like the ones that came across that have found other careers, a lot of them, but I reached out to a lot of our freelancers just to kind of see, because it has been over a year now that we've engaged with many people, unfortunately. And it was so awesome because overwhelmingly they were responding back. They're like, I'm willing, I'm ready, I've survived, but get me back, And plus we have had a lot engaged on these online events too, which has been a lot of fun. It hasn't been to the degree when people we've needed for live events, but we have still stayed engaged. But the people aspect are ready, and that's the thing. And I know, like I said, from some people had expressed some concern. They're like, are y'all going to have the people we need too that are ready to go back, or have they moved on? Are they into entertainment or doing other things? But overwhelmingly, what I've heard is people, they're there, they're ready. They've adapted, they've survived, but they're ready to get back out there on the shows.
Yeah, Melanie kind of answered my answer to the next question, which was, what are the biggest challenges you see with the returning to live events? And we've always been able to handle logistics, trucking, getting the gear, seeing the right stuff is there, that every cable, local area network, whatever is available. The most difficult challenge when I started in 1981 is still the most difficult challenge in 2021. It's what Melanie just said, it's people. It's having the right people to do the right job, and then enabling those. It's not hard to enable those people if you're willing to take the risk, and I always have been. But it was really refreshing. I think you sent out to 70 or 80 freelancers, and I mean, way past 90% were like, several of them were like, yeah, I'm doing something else, but I am a show guy or gal, and I want to get back to it. I was bugging some of my freelance and staff engineers recently to help me think about some things for the future, new camera switchers, et cetera. And overwhelmingly, they were when I called, they were like, do you have a show? And it's like, no, I just have a question. But they were all ready to get back. And some of them had been doing installation work for the past year. I was just talking at lunch. One of my ex-Freeman employees has been an intern adjuster, but he's a TD on a show here within a couple of weeks. A lot of them, because they're very, we as an industry are people that can solve problems. We're very talented people, bragging, but it's true. We handle emergencies for a living. So during the COVID crisis, many of them went out and found ways to stay employed and to bring home the bacon, so to speak. And I was kind of like, you were worried, like Melanie said, did they decide being home all the time was a good idea? And I was at lunch with one of my producer friends last week who has like the world's sweetest wife, but he said, she's really ready for me to be gone. And because he's been traveling for 30 or 40 years like I have, doing shows. And those of us who have been successful in this business, there will be some people who decided being home every night was a good thing and they don't want to go back, and that's perfectly fine. I've told many employees over the year, this is not the U.S. Army. You don't get arrested if you go AWOL. You can go do another job. But if you love this business and you love being a problem solver and doing things, it's a great industry. And most people, when Melanie sent out that recent survey, we were so happy to see how overwhelmingly people were like, no, I'm a show person. I'm ready to get back. And by the way, several people that I called, as I may have mentioned, I'm more of an in-person person. They were like, and I have 3 friends that you haven't worked with before. I had 2 or 3 that had guys, and quite honestly, they'd worked somewhere else and they were let go. And they're like, this person was a really good engineer and he was with Brand X. You need to get him working before he goes back because he's now freelance. And on that question about, being able to handle more business, that's one of the things I plan to do is we've always looked for those best people. And, best people, by the way, is great attitude, number 1, then great aptitude, and then skills. We can teach skills, but I have found through the years I usually cannot teach a great attitude. I can improve it by supporting people, by them knowing we're going to do all they can. But what's our biggest challenge? Same thing. It's people. We have lost a few people that we would wish would come back, but there are people out there that want to be part of the Alford family and part of the greater audiovisual family. And let's go find the business, and I'm very confident we can find our biggest challenge, which is people. So I droned on again. Any other questions?
Well, that's what we get on the porch. So I did kind of laugh to myself a little when you asked a question and you said, I'm not sure I'm the one to answer that. When have you ever not shared
I always have an opinion.
on
I might not
something?
be the right person.
But no, I think those are great thoughts, and it's where our minds are. But just, to kind of bring it back, because we're talking about the virtual, I am, to bring them together. I am so excited. I'm excited for those challenges. I'm excited for that live to come back. But I'm very excited to have the capabilities of the virtual online as well, because again, we've learned so much, we've developed so much, and also in all those people responding back, most have gotten very adept at doing the broadcast or the virtual events as well. So I'm excited about this next phase that we're doing the live and that. Just, those that know me know I love change and I love progress and moving forward. I get I don't like standing still for too long or things being the same way. So I'm kind of ready for this shakeup. It's like we see the light again. It's not a train, and how we can even take this next phase of events and do it amazing. And also the people, that's exciting. And I know you do most of our scheduling, like the potential of these new people, people we haven't worked with before. So it's just a whole opportunity out there. I'm ready for it.
The great people in this industry, and I'm so glad to be a part of, but for the past 13 months now, or whatever it's been, those great people haven't just been sitting around. I've been drinking a little whiskey, smoking a few cigars, but we've also been learning. And I'm much more so here as we're seeing things come back on, but it hasn't, it has not been just a lost year. I kind of knew what an XR stage was a year ago, And now we've actually, been involved in some, and we're going down to look at one that one of our whole companies has set up. But we're ready to take that technology and move it forward. We've been looking at new switching systems, new cameras, improving our networking ability. Our comms, which are digital comms, we were already, I think, some of the best in the business about when COVID started. But now we'll routinely hook them up across the nation and have people on comms that are in other cities or other countries. And we do it now without even struggling. And a year ago, that wasn't true. So we haven't been sitting around, hoping that one day we'll be back in a ballroom doing the same thing we were doing in 2020. We've been thinking, what can we do better when we do get back? How can we be faster, more efficient? The main thing is, giving the tools to the right people and giving them the ability to go out and do the best they can. That's really what I've done. I'm an enabler. I hopefully enable people to do a good job. But we've all the people that I want to be working with in the future have been learning this past year. If somebody's back and like, well, is there a new, and they haven't even looked, I probably don't want to work with them. But if they come in asking, hey, have you all looked at these new cameras, which they have been, again, everything we use in the ballroom, we're now more excited because we see a ballroom coming back. It was a little hard last summer when you just kept pushing further and further out. But I don't think I'm any different than many others. The past few months, we do see an end in sight. And we're ready to take the quite honestly, very hard lessons some learned this past year and use them. If you always do things the same way, you're always going to get the same results. And we've always been about improving. We tabled, something a lot of y'all probably bored with or don't care, but I've been a huge proponent of RFID for years, and we were really getting it working because the cost and everything we slowed back last year. We're now ramping that back up because when we're in a ballroom near you soon, we want to get in there with the exact right gear every time, and we want to know that it didn't take a detour on the way to our truck when we load it back up. And so that it seems like a minor thing, but that operation of having the right stuff for the right people, that's a way that we can decrease our miss in the ballroom and increase how accurate we are. And Melanie's team re-engaged with meetings 2 or 3 weeks ago to restart that process. And we were way far down the line when we suddenly had no truck to put anything on, and it didn't matter. It's easy to load a truck, by the way, when the entire warehouse is full. It's not easy when you're really busy and you're having to go cross-rent stuff, and that's what it's all about. We are fully engaged and just super excited. And by the way, it won't be easy. If it's easy, everybody be doing it, and it wouldn't be any fun. It'll be tough. But
we're ready. And to that point, too, like you said, we've been not only looking how to make shows better, but, my side's more on the operational
Absolutely.
and the support side. We feel an obligation, and also we had the opportunity, what can we do better just to make all the things better when we get busy, so we're ready for it, right? So whether it's computer systems or how we schedule people or RFID or whatever, it's been a nonstop of
learning and moving
forward. So.
And the good news is on the virtual side, matter of fact, just the other day, somebody was asking about a hybrid event. And they asked me my biggest worry on that. My biggest worry was that the hotel had enough bandwidth to get us out. Because prior to this, sometimes they did not. And I think they too have been improving. But if they can give us that, which we can go and check and have, a year ago, we were like, Today, we're like, sure.
We're good.
Not even a thought. I want to thank everybody for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sticking around. So this has been fun. Thank y'all for having me here in person.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. So again, just wanted to reiterate that all the topics that we talked about today were good for live events as well as virtual, polling, chat, video engagement. So they can be used both, quite frankly, in live and virtual. So we will see you next time on the back porch. Bye-bye.
See ya.